This is Shab Kareem live from London studio. In recent years, the United States has strategically used journalists and media outlets as instruments of influence, extending its control far beyond its borders. One of the primary vehicles for this effort is the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, often described as the honey trap for the world. USAID has quietly become the major player in shaping global narratives. In 2023 alone, it spent $268.4 million on initiatives supporting the so-called independent media. This funding covered 4,300 media outlets, 4,799 broadcast hours, reaching to nearly 778 million people, and the training of more than 9,000 journalists across 30 countries. Beneath the surface of development aid, the US has been steadily embedding its influence through media channels that appear independent but remain tethered to Washington's interests. The Panama Papers leak of 2016 stands as the most striking example of how journalism was weaponized for geopolitical purposes. Marketed as the biggest expose on corruption in history, the leak in reality served as a tool to destabilize governments and leaders aligned with China's Belt and Road Initiative and Russia's global ambitions. Behind this operation stood organizations funded and guided by US interests, including USAID, the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, OCCRP, and the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, ICIJ. These bodies framed the operation as transparency-driven investigative reporting, but their financial lifelines told another story. The OCCRP, which spearheaded much of the Panama Papers reporting, has received at least $47 million from the US government, primarily via USAID. Between 2014 to 2023, this accounted for more than half of its budget, with US contributions rising to 53% in 2023 alone. Such dependence on Washington funding casts serious doubts on the independence of its editorial decisions. Reports suggest that American influence extended beyond money to decisions on editorial direction, hiring policies, the choice of targets, and raising the questions of whether the project was truly about exposing corruption or about selectively engineering scandals to weaken governments that resisted US interests. The leaders most damaged by the Panama Papers all shared one common trait: ties with Beijing or Moscow, or a reluctance to align with Washington. In Pakistan, Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif was disqualified from office, plunging the country into political and economic stability just as China and Pakistan's economic border was gaining momentum. In Azerbaijan, President Ilham Aliyev dismissed the leaks as Western propaganda designed to undermine him. In Russia, a close associates of Vladimir Putin were named, reinforcing anti-Russian narratives in Western media. Even relatives of Chinese President Xi Jinping appeared in documents coinciding with China's growing push to expand global influence through the Belt and Road Initiative. Notably, however, the leak had little impact within China itself. Viewed in this light, the Panama Papers were not simply a journalistic breakthrough, but rather a calculated strike unmasked as investigative reporting, and an act of economic and political warfare aimed at destabilizing governments that threatened US interests. By channeling resources through USAID and groups such as OCCRP and ICIJ, Washington executed a campaign that blended media, intelligence, geopolitics under the banner of transparency. Yet among the thousands of names exposed worldwide, a conspicuous omission lingers. The leak spread US politicians and billionaires, raising an uncomfortable but critical question that whether this was about fighting corruption or about protecting American power while dismantling its rivals. Stay tuned for more updates on the story. Keep watching Ocean News.